Father Coppes and Dr. Reynolds, I'm curious about, because y'all touched upon Deuteronomy 18. And when it comes to Islam, I've done a little bit of work and looking in the way they look at it, mainly modern day.
Why don't I read that out right now for you, William?
Yeah, could you do that?
This will be the Septuagint version. So if ever among you there arise a prophet, and there's some emphasis in the Bahira legends of the prediction of arising a prophet, arise a prophet or a dreamer dream, and should give you a sign or a portent, and should the sign or the portent come true, which he spoke to you, saying, let us go and worship other gods whom you do not know. Do not listen to the words of this prophet or that dream or that dreamer, because the Lord your God test you. So clearly this can be used against Muhammad if the early Muslims are claiming he had dreams.
Yeah.
So that's 1814. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to kind of to pick. Perhaps you can touch upon it first, Dr. Reynolds, because when I look at Deuteronomy 18, and I've looked at the commentaries, I've looked at what Zakir Naik has to say about it, what Dr. Shakir Ali has to say about it, and I find their comments on it to be just so different than the earliest commentaries. If I look at the way this was interpreted by the very first followers of Christ, I can find it from the very earliest times where they identify the prophet like Moses to be Christ. You can find it as early as Clement of Alexandria, and probably earlier than that. I haven't done an incredibly deep dig there. To me, of course, as you all know very well, a Catholic or an Orthodox or even an evangelical will identify the prophet like Moses to have been Christ. I wonder what would be the reply if you point out that perhaps Damascene, part of his denial of Muhammad being a true prophet, as other individuals note, was that in the context of Deuteronomy 18, the brethren, the brothers that are mentioned there, are indicating that the prophet would come from the Jewish lineage. How is that dealt with within Islam? Is there a kind of a reply to that? What, just your thoughts?
I've seen a reply to that, William. It's okay, Father, if I jump in here.
Sure, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you say, the verse says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, to give the King James there.
Sure. And
so, and the Hebrew is achehem. So they're literally their brothers, their brethren. I'm pretty sure it's in a medieval Islamic text where I've seen it. It could be Ali at-Tabari, but I'm not sure where the argument is. Ali at-Tabari is a 9th century scholar who wrote 2 books against Christianity. He was a convert from Christianity to Islam. So I think it's in his text, but it might be getting this wrong. The idea is that it's that term refers to a people who were brothers to the Israelite people. And so the Ishmaelites were the ones who were brothers to the Israelites. I'm not sure how coherent you found that argument, but that's how he does it. Yeah,
I get you. Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah, and as you know very well, for a Catholic or an Orthodox or an evangelical, you're right. It would be a little bit difficult for them to be able to find that to be charitable, to say coherent. But do you think that maybe, and I guess I'll toss the question to you, Father Coppes, do you think maybe that's perhaps part of the reason, among many others, as to why St. John Damascene would have had such strong language towards denying Muhammad as being a prophet? The fact that he recognized the identification of Christ as his prophet in Scripture, because he ticks all the boxes, and then the identification as well. We look in the earliest commentaries and the patristics, noting that as well. Do you think that could be part of the reason?
Yeah, I provide, and there may be a translation out there, but I don't remember finding one. But here's a translation of John Damascene's own words in regard to these passages that we're talking about. And this does have to do with the early life of Muhammad, because he is recognized as a prophet by Bahira in the Christian sources and in the Muslim sources by an overshadowing cloud. There's a lot of interesting things about overshadowing I might touch on in a second. But for now, let's listen to John Damascene. But when we ask, and who is there to testify that God gave him a book? And which of the prophets foretold that such, quote, a prophet would rise up, end quote? They are at a loss. So what we're hearing is John Damascene, and this seems to coincide, and obviously I always welcome corrections from Dr. Reynolds if I'm not up to date on the literature, but this seems to coincide with the literature that what has been extrapolated from what most people would recognize as the Dome of the Mosque and the
Dome of the Rock.
The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which are famous for these inscriptions that can be found around there, and that none of them seem to draw on anything that enlightens us about Muhammad as such. And then there's no literature that enlightens us from this period about Muhammad. And so this seems to coincide with John's own claims that there is no current Muslim literature or oral tradition, because he's having dialogues in which they can provide for him a life of Muhammad, in which they can secure for John that he's like Jesus, or that he is like Moses. And so I suspect that this was being used in Christian Muslim dialogue, is it really beckons Muslims to either compile materials or to produce materials, ex nihilo, in order to affirm the status of Muhammad.